The meeting of October 17th, 2016. Councilmember Luna, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Clower?
Here.
Vice Mayor Gomez?
Here.
Mayor Velasquez?
Here.
Councilmember Friend?
Present.
Councilmember Luna?
Present.
City Manager Rivera?
Present.
City Attorney Sullivan?
Here.
Lieutenant Olson?
Here.
And the record will show City Clerk Graves and Police Chief Westrick as absent.
Thank you very much. The verification of agenda posting.
The agenda for the City Council of the City of Hollister meeting of October 17th, 2016 was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall on October 14th, 2016 at 1:40 p.m. per Government Code Section 54954.2.
Thank you. City Attorney, is there anything to report out of closed session?
Yes, the council, we discussed two items, the matter of the industrial wastewater treatment plant fire and the John Smith landfill waste disposal unit. Those items were discussed and instructions to city attorney was given.
Thank you very much. Tonight we have a proclamation honoring Kareem Malik. Is he in today? I should say thanking you. Whereas Kareem Malik owns two buildings listed as contributing buildings in the Downtown National Historic District at 445 and 459 San Benito Street, which, by the way, is right on 5th Street and San Benito on the south or northeast corner, one of the oldest buildings in our city. Now, therefore, I, Ignacio Velasquez, Mayor of the City of Hollister, on behalf of the City Council of the City of Hollister, hereby proclaim that Kareem Malik is a strong supporter of our community and congratulate him on his stewardship. Now, if you haven't noticed, he recently repainted the building, an incredibly beautiful building, and we're very proud of the work you did to bring those buildings back, so thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for coming and your support. I have had this building for over 10 years, and the building is a great building. I was in one of the other rooms a few years back, and I noticed a picture on the wall that had dated back in 1800s with carriages in front of it. So it's a historic building, and I like to keep it that way. And it's a nice piece of property for the town, and so thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move to the consent calendar. Are there any items that the council would like to pull? No items from the council. Are there any from the public?
I'd like
None?
to make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. C, we'll go to public input. Members of the public may address the City Council on any matter within the City Council's jurisdiction that is not on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person with a maximum of 30 minutes per subject. Speaker cards are available in the foyer and are to be completed and given to the city clerk before speaking. State law prohibits the City Council from discussing or taking action on any item which is not on the agenda. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tim Burns.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for allowing me a moment to speak with you. I had just a couple of things I wanted to bring to your attention or ask you about. I am a resident of District 4, and I had the opportunity to attend a LULAC event recently, and at that point it was brought up, a question was raised about the potential for creating a ethics commission or committee, and I know that Councilmember Friend was there, and it seemed like that would be a wise thing to consider, and I would just like to put that before you formally now and ask that you give due consideration to the creation of it. My hope would be that it would be like the Maytag repair guy and very boring and not very productive, but ultimately I think there could be some true value to the creation of that. The second thing I wanted to bring up, and Mayor, I know you're not able to respond at this time in regard to it, but maybe later in your conversation, I'd like to know, it was suggested that at some point the city would consider maybe outside counsel as you move forward to address marijuana, and I've not heard anything since that information was put out, and I'd like to hear more about your thoughts if and when appropriate.
We will bring that
Thank
up.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Matthew Courtney.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, thank you for your time. In October of last year, a homeless shelter has been opened in my neighborhood. I've been a resident since 2009. I bought my first house in Hollister. I always saw it as a good place to raise children. Since this shelter's open, it's just increasingly progressing into every day I see, drug use. Neighbors are threatened with bodily harm from the clients that go to this particular homeless shelter. Neighbors have had homeless people defecate in their front yards. I've come out to people sleeping in my front yard waiting for the shelter to come open. I'm a recent dad. I don't think as a new dad, I should have to explain to my child why there's somebody sleeping on my front yard, why there's somebody drinking in public, why there's somebody passed out. We've been in contact with the city since about the last 8 months, and they've either been unable or unwilling to help us. The issue grows worse and worse. I mean, yesterday I sat on my front porch intermittently here and there and probably counted about 50 or 60 people going in and out of there within an hour or two. It seems to be growing to where they're bringing people in from out of town. It started small and it's just growing and growing and growing. I just humbly ask that you guys please work with us and do something to resolve this matter. We've looked over the zoning laws, and it's zoned as home office, and to my understanding, per section 1706-010, it doesn't meet anywhere close to the what's spelled out in that law. I'm just hoping in the future you guys can work with us to resolve this issue and we can move forward. High school kids go by this every day. It's really a safety issue. I've been threatened by clients of the homeless shelter with death, bodily harm. Several other neighbors have. There are people living in their cars. I mean, I'm kind of being redundant here and going on, but I think you get my point. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Jim Pleat.
Good evening. My name is Jim Plitty. I reside at 911 Monterey Street in beautiful downtown Hollister. And I'm here to back up my neighbor, Kevin. For the last 10 months, I've been in touch with the city asking that what we regard as an illegal use of 910 Monterey, the old hospital, be ended. Most of that contact has been with code enforcement, and I have not gotten a response either way as to whether our contentions are correct. Now, this large homeless daycare center, in our view, is an obvious violation of Section 1706, the Home Office District, where it lies. That zoning and the lack of any use permit were confirmed to me by the Planning Department. Taking a quick peek at the Home Office zone, states the regulations are intended to preserve the residential and historic character of the area. Opportunities for limited small-scale compatible office uses, arts and crafts, beauty salons to generate low pedestrian and traffic volumes. This is exactly what isn't happening in our neighborhood. This is a beautiful historic neighborhood that's being seriously compromised by what we regard as a violation of your own ordinance. Permitted uses are things like single-family dwellings and home occupations. A use permit is required if you want to have a home office with two or more, with no more than two persons. Use permit for in this district for even having a home office with two persons in it, as I read the ordinance. This large homeless daycare facility is involved in food distribution, showers, laundry, beverage service. Their own website says more than 130 persons are served by the facility, and our request is that the council encourage our code enforcement people to do something about this with the assistance of your most capable city attorney to see what we regard as a real violation, a real nuisance, be terminated by legal means. So I appreciate your attention on that, and I look forward to hearing from the city in our effort to resolve this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cindy Russler.
Hello, thank you for allowing us to speak tonight. I am also going to speak about my concerns with regard to the homeless daycare center that is located in the old Hazel Hawkins hospital building. We have lived in Hollister for 25 years approximately, 7 of those on Monterey and now currently 19 on Hawkins Street. And we've seen many businesses come and go from the old hospital, but I am concerned about my father's house, which is the homeless center. I want to say that I admire their mission. I am sensitive to the plight of the homeless. I work in a school that has 142 homeless students. However, my question is simply with regards to the appropriateness and the legality of its location in a residential area. When I read the article in the Freelance about the difficulties Marcy Houston was having with her business and the homeless, the drug use, the yelling of obscenities, the increased trash and garbage, the public defecation and urination and threats, I could relate to those things because those things are happening in our neighborhood. We also have some older established people who live in our neighborhood who are fearful to walk around the neighborhood right now, especially near the hospital. For a while, we had a truck that was parked out there that was full with someone's personal items, and there was a dog in the truck. And every time we would walk by, I feared that dog was going to come out of the truck. We also have a lot more cars that are parked on the street that I noticed that are full of personal items. In addition to the number of people, the number of people who kind of hang out and loiter on the street has increased. Many of these are waiting to hook up. I've been there where I've seen cars drive up, they park, they wait for someone to come out of the homeless center, they talk to them, and then they go back into the homeless center. A lot of times we see people pushing their carts down the street. Again, like Matt said, they sit on the sidewalk. You have to run around them. The other day, my husband and I went for a walk, and there was a man across the street screaming at a tree. And, that can be very, very uncomfortable in a neighborhood, especially when we have children and we have the elderly. And then, on top of that, I have seen a number of people blatantly walking down the streets smoking marijuana, coming to or from the homeless daycare center. It's statistically noted that a great majority of those who are homeless suffer from mental illness and or drug abuse, and this is indeed evident. We are concerned, and Okay, what is also very concerning to me is we had absolutely no input into whether this business could be put in our community or not. My question is, if I were to open a methadone clinic, could I do it without any city council or city approval? I want to just ask you again, it's for the appropriateness, and I thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Monty Groves.
Greetings, Mayor Velasquez and City Council. My name is Monty Groves. I am the current president of Fraser Lake Airpark Corporation at 7901 Fraser Lake Road in Hollister. I'm here to speak about the Hollister Air Show this evening. It's my understanding that Mike Chambliss intends to not have this event in 2017. He's going to make that recommendation. My goal tonight is to thank City Council and thank the City of Hollister and to briefly outline the very positive experiences that I've observed over the years at the air show has been in operation. I'd like to start with the safety record. This air show has a perfect safety record. Key in the mind of air show director was to put every possible safety measure in place each and every day of operation. In this, we can collectively claim success. As a side note, the FAA administrators monitoring the air show has given us increasingly great reviews for organization and safety as the show has progressed year by year. I would like to express my personal gratitude to City Council and Air Show Management for affording this volunteer opportunity to me and to others voluntarily supporting the air show. The overall sense of community and patriotism that intrinsically emerges from events like this creates a groundswell of pride to all involved. My team's experience, I lead a team of 5 to 7 people on the hot ramp. Our assignment is to make sure that during the air show that all performers have technical support and security. Some of our team are so excited and dedicated to work at this air show that they travel from Florida and as far away as the Netherlands to do so. They do this for the same reasons we all work the air show, to present to the community members, specifically children, the broad field of aviation and to introduce them to the terrific facility that is your Hollister Municipal Airport. The CAL FIRE operations, while not part of the scheduled air show, presents all community members with the opportunity to see dedicated firefighting base operations. They get to see the fire attack operations on television every year and now get to see it and hear it directly in front of them. All of the volunteers and performers get to speak to the very attentive children and let them know that they too can be a pilot and they can fly the very same airplane if they wish. It's a great opportunity to remind children that these things are available when you stay in school and study hard. After the show, we get many of requests on how to learn to fly, and we always send them to the flight schools at Hollister Airport. I'm very sensitive to the budgetary challenges that the City of Hollister must struggle with constantly. That adjusting priorities of community protection and education are paramount to keeping the city one of California's best places to live and work. That said, I would never suggest that the air show has a priority over community development and public safety. I want you all to fully know that if and when this air show is presented again, I and the group of volunteers that have accomplished this event for the City of Hollister would not hesitate for 1 second to get back out there and do it again and again. Thank you.
Thank you for all your work.
Enrique Ariola.
Good evening, City Council members and the public. My name is Enrique Ariola. I'm representing today the County of San Benito Community Service and Workforce Development. Our current unemployment rate is at 6.3% with a workforce of about 30,000 individuals. There's about 1,900 people that currently are unemployed. At the America's Job Center, our main task is for us to provide workforce services, and one of the events that we have partnered with the Chamber of Commerce is the job fair that is taking place this Thursday. So I wanted to invite the public to the job fair that's taking place this Thursday. We're calling it Building Business in 2016. From 3 to 4 is designated specifically for veterans as a priority, and then from 4 to 7 open to the general public. It's free of charge. We have approximately 25 local businesses that have positions open. here at Veterans Memorial Building, 649 San Benito Street. So again, invite the public for those that are interested in looking for a job. We also have a number of other organizations that will be providing resources to the public. So wanted to make that announcement.
Thank you.
Ellen Leitinen.
Good evening. I just thank you for this opportunity, Mayor and also City Council, for just allowing us to even speak, so I appreciate that. I've been a Hollister resident for only 5 years, but I've had family in this area for 20 to 30 years. And so I have a real heart for this city. I love the people here. And I moved here because I wanted to be part of a small town. And I really would like to address the issue of growth, the housing development that's been going on. We have been growing at such a fast rate that I am really, truly worried that we do not have the infrastructure to really support the growth that we have that's going on right now. And I, unfortunately, have to commute all the way up to San Jose. I would actually prefer, as a teacher, to teach right here in Hollister and give back to this community. But the prices for the ability to be able to work in this area as opposed to San Jose is so different that I could make that change. So I'm saying that to you is that I really don't want to have to commute, but I do have to commute because of the amount I would get paid in the differential. So all that said, I travel up to South San Jose every day, and the housing and the development that's happened that way, also in Gilroy and also Morgan Hill, the traffic on 101 has become a parking lot. And it continues to get worse and worse and worse. And so what my fear for this area is that we are growing so fast and the traffic is expanding so much that I'm literally afraid that roads like 25 and 156 are going to back up right into our downtown area and even into our residential areas, because the housing growth that we have seen right now has not even begun to mushroom into what I know it can mushroom into, because we've only built part of what has already been approved. So the reason I'm here tonight is that I know that there's a lot of residents throughout this city and even in the county that are very worried about the housing growth. I am petitioning this council to enact a 1% or a 0% growth until this area has time to catch up with the infrastructure that's needed to support that kind of growth. I think we're going to find that we have a lot more problems in this area. Everything from crime to difficulties with having enough firemen to having our police officers impacted, not enough schools, shopping centers. We need something to slow down here so that we can catch up. And I don't know what that's all going to mean in terms of how we plan everything out. But whatever plan that we're operating on right now needs to come into today's reality of what's going on. So I'm petitioning this board, please consider enacting a 1% or a 0% growth until we can catch up. It's really important because I know there's a lot of us being impacted, and it's detrimental to our community. Thank you.
You very much.
Linda Lamp.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council and to the audience. I didn't know I was going to be speaking tonight. I actually came here to see our dear friend Dr. Malik being honored for the building, and that was a great honor, and we really appreciate that. I am Pastor Linda Lampy from my father's house at 910 Monterey Street, and I would like to address some of the concerns for the folks that are here with our neighbors. I have invited our neighbors to come and see who we are and what we do. We are not a daycare center. We are a church that is open 7 days a week. We follow the biblical commands. For Jesus, he said, if someone is hungry, you feed his sheep. When you've given someone a drink of water, you've done unto the least of these. And that's what we do. But we do more than that. We provide encouragement, Bible studies, classes, lectures, connected with the city, with the county, with getting people jobs and housing and connections. There are very few people that come from outside San Benito County or Hollister that come there. Matter of fact, we fly under the radar. A lot of people don't even know that we're there. And yes, you have called code enforcement on us, and code enforcement has been there, and they found that we're in compliance. You've called the police on us. The police have never found anything wrongdoing. There are people that are broken that do use drugs sometimes, but you know what? We've gotten 87 people off the streets into long-term recovery or permanent housing or jobs. The gentleman in the truck, he now has a job. He has a place to live. We have women and children that come there. And we have senior citizens, people that can't even walk. And yes, we do minister to them. And we've encouraged and invited you all to come and visit us so that you could see, so you could squelch the rumors. There's no beds there. There's no one sleeping there. There's no one getting high there. There's no one getting drunk there. Because if they did that, they have hell to pay with me, because I don't put up with that kind of stuff. So actually, I think that I have brought a great gift to this city and this community. And if you all would come and be a part of the solution rather than wanting to condemn and be a part of the problem. And we're not a business. I do have an office there, Hollister Community Outreach. I am in compliance with that because I don't have any employees. It's my husband and me. We give out Christmas gifts to children who's in need and things of that nature. We've been doing that for years. So, you know, I'm thankful I'm here tonight because I would like to address that. And I've invited our friends from all the different city and county and agencies to come and visit us. And I think if you came and visited us, if you came to a worship service, if you came to a Bible study, if you came and met some of the people. You know, we have a little child, she was failing in school and she was homeless. And she was struggling, and her mother was about to go to jail because the child couldn't get to school on time because they were walking. But just come and visit us, please. I think you would be favorably impressed, and thank you all.
Thank you very much.
There's no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. We'll move to item F50.1, the Measure E update.
Can I do D31 real quick?
D30. Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped over. I jumped right past the city manager. D31, city manager's oral report.
For the neighbors of 910 Monterey Street, I know Mr. Pleady has caught me in the gym a couple of times. All I can say is, and please note that I do know that our code enforcement officers have been in the facility. I believe that some council members have also been in the facility and had conversations with Linda. I can hopefully assure everybody that if there is illegal activity going on there, that it either has been addressed or will be addressed. Real quickly regarding I forget her name, who spoke about requesting a 0 or 1% growth due to infrastructure needs. And I know most people in this room are probably tired of me saying it, and there was actually, I think, John did a nice article in Benito Link kind of describing the history of growth in the city of Hollister. Again, for everybody in this room real quickly, in 2002, you know that the city went through a building moratorium, and that wasn't lifted until 2008. From 2008 to 2012, we were in the country's biggest recession, probably since the 30s, obviously. During that period of time, I believe, off the top of my head, there was 132 units constructed, and those were multifamily units that were actually assisted by the City of Hollister Redevelopment Agency, and they were multifamily projects. One was over by Rancho, the other one was on West and 4th. We have just now started to begin developing, maybe the last couple of years, the single-family home component. Again, I think we're at about 450 homes since 2002. That's 14 years. That is about your 1% growth rate. Infrastructure needs are completely addressed. We have water infrastructure in place. We have sewer infrastructure in place. Our police and fire departments are subsidized by those new homes coming in. We have them annexed into community facilities districts to help offset the costs with those facilities. The new development currently pays a pretty pretty hefty traffic impact fee. That traffic impact fee, part of that goes for the construction of Highway 25 and any improvements that go along with that. I guess what's frustrating for the city and should be frustrating for most of you is that it is a state highway, yet they're asking local folks to help contribute to that particular problem. We take care of our own issues here within the city of Hollister through our traffic impact fee program. The county has adopted a very similar program. So I want to make sure that everybody in this room knows that we haven't grown as much as people think we've grown. I know the county has a big project called Santana Ranch, and that's on the other side, on the east side of Fairview. That's not a city project, that's a county project, but nevertheless, that project has been planned for about 20 years, actually probably about 25 years. These are not projects that have snuck up on anybody. These are things that have all been in the works for several years. I've asked my Development Services Director, Brian Swanson, to prepare a kind of an annual report for the Development Services Department. We're working on that right now. It'll be something that comes to the City Council, and it'll address all of those issues. We'll be able to start tracking the number of building permits that are done, both multifamily and single family. We'll start tracking the waste capacity at the treatment plant, the water capacity, what water we're using, and we'll be able to provide, I hope everybody in here, enough information about where things are going. And our website actually is pretty good. It'll show you where all the new development is going, what's been planned, and you'll probably notice that most of those developments have been planned probably at least since 2008 or 9, and many of them back in the 90s. So again, that's kind of it on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to item F50.1.
Hello, Mayor and Council. I'm your staff member on the Measure E committee, and I'd like to introduce Robert Martin to give their annual presentation.
I hope my voice did not give out. It was better actually when I walked in the door, but having sat here and having to get before you find people, probably it's going to go out. So that'll excuse me from not saying anything. First of all, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council and fellow citizens, the Measure E committee meets on a regular basis with the intent of being the oversight committee as we were appointed to be for the 1% sales tax that falls under Measure E. The report, as the City Council has basically 12 pages to it. On the historical side of it, it explains why we came to be. And at this time, I'd like to point out who the members are of this committee, so we're not just some people that you may not recognize. I've been appointed by the mayor. Carol Lenore has been appointed by council member Friend. Rohit Sharma has been appointed by Mickey Luna. Christine Fortney has been appointed by Carson Clower. Ashley Sand was appointed by Victor Gomez. Chris Nolan was appointed by the Hollister Downtown Association. Frankie Gallagher was appointed by the San Benito County Chamber of Commerce. And Graham Mackey was appointed by the San Benito County Business Council. That's the committee that has formed and will report on these opinions. Now, as I said, there are 12 pages to the report, and we're not going to go through each of them, but to give you a synopsis of what we actually end up going through. First, on the second page is really a Measure E and Measure T revenue, which was the revenue or the measure that was before Measure E. And we give you a comparison in that report of what happened from 11-12, the years 2011 and 12, to 2015-2016. On page 3 is the use of Measure E in revenue and T revenue, and the comparisons again going back as far as 11-12. Page 4 is the general fund expense. Page 5 is general fund ending balances. 6 is the cost centers that exist for the city. Page 7 is the pie chart cost centers and a comparison again going back to 2014 and 2015 comparisons. And then a list of all the personnel expense. There's a pie chart for the personnel expenses. And then there's employee positions, a number of employees that are employed by the city, in a comparison going back 5 years to what it was 5 years ago and what it is currently. And then there are certain staffing and budget revisions, sales tax revenue by major business groups. Probably the most important part, though, is our summary and recommendations. The committee believes the council is spending Measure E funds consistent with the intent of the voter-approved measure. The committee has not found any misuse or inappropriate use of Measure E funds during the fiscal year ending in 2016. This is our third report, and that same paragraph appears in all three of our reports. The committee feels Measure E funds have enabled the following positive items for our community: the Junior Giants program, the resurrection of youth winter basketball, the reopening of the park bathrooms, the ability to have departments being open full days a week. The city has also provided for more sidewalk repairs as well as pavement management. And Measure E, with supplemental funding from grants, has provided our city with much needed public safety funding. Now, having said that, in our prior report, we requested that the council adopt a long-range plan for the sunset of Measure E. With Measure E generating approximately 22% of the general fund revenue, the council needs to make a determination as to whether or not the city can function with the loss of Measure E revenue. And if so, what adjustments will have to be made in order to balance the budget? And that was a request that we made, and we made that previously. Let me also state at this time, this committee is fully in agreement with the necessity of Measure W. We believe, in fact, that this council at some point ought to consider the fact that a 1% increase in sales tax should be consistent and should be permanent, and not necessarily be set out by just certain years of measurement. It is apparent to this committee you cannot function if you do not have Measure E revenue, which means you cannot function if you do not have Measure W passed in this upcoming election. Okay, our belief is that the plan to extend this for 20 years has merit, because to try to do something over a 5-year period of time seems to be a very difficult task, although I must commend you. You've actually done a good job in that regards. But if you're not going to go with a permanent one, at some point then during that 20-year period of time, you're going to have to sit and make a determination as to how do you sunset Measure W, hopefully that will pass. So we do make that request to you. After the approval of Measure W, and hopefully you don't face that premise that you don't have that going forward, you should look in the future. Either that or make it a permanent 1% sales tax. That's all I really have. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir, and all the committee for all their hard work on reviewing those numbers. It's good to see that we are achieving our goals.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from the council? Councilmember Luna?
I just want to say thank you for the report, and just so the community is aware that this is a cross-section of the community serving on your committee.
Correct.
And we thank all the people that have taken the time. They're volunteers that come forward and actually look over all these numbers, make recommendations, and I really appreciate that, that they are making the recommendations as you just presented. So on behalf of myself as District 2 council member, I really want to thank you and the committee.
Thank you, Councilwoman Luna. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tim Burns.
Step aside for Mr. Burns.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I, first of all, would like to thank the committee as well as a member of the community. It is a difficult task, and it does take a lot of time and commitment. I've had the pleasure of reading the previous two reports. However, I must say, in order to actually get those, I had to do a public records request. And I will say that I'm somewhat disappointed. As recently as today, checking the city website, I've not found them. Now, perhaps they're there, but I cannot find them. I would certainly hope that this report, as well as the 2 other reports, would be put on the website immediately. I think it's imperative. The information is critical, and the community needs to be able to get it without having to do a public records request, unquestionably. Now, having said that, as council has acknowledged, it's a civilian committee, and I think it would be helpful to actually know what their background is specifically, personally and professionally, within reason, and have that part of the report. I've not seen the most recent report, but in the other 2, it mentions who they are and who they're appointed by, but I think it would help for a more well-rounded report to better understand that. The other piece of this that I would like to suggest that council move forward with, in the event that Measure W does in fact pass, I think it should be a more detailed report of the specific purchases that are made with the taxing dollars. I understand the reason why that wasn't the case, because it's a general sales tax and a general tax, and it only requires 50.1 to pass, and I get that. But to really ascertain the true value of this, I think it would be very helpful to know how many firemen were hired as a result of this, how many police officers, what did they do once they were hired. I think it would also be helpful. We've talked about the parks, and parks are probably one of the things that we can truly see the value in, and we know factually that money was used for that, and we can identify with that, and it's much easier to pass a tax if you can quantify it. I want to see visual measurables, and then, you know, sidewalks, road repairs. We know they're extremely expensive, but if you did a mile or a block of sidewalk, I think that's really critical, and I think that the future report, in the event Measure W passes, and I'm cautiously optimistic that it will, just needs to really get more into the weeds so that the community can see the true value of their investment, because I know it's there. I just can't find it because the report was not written with that direction, and I hope as council you will direct the future committee to be more of an oversight committee as opposed to an overview. Thank you very much for your time, council.
Thank you.
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you again very much for all your work. This time we'll move to item 50.2.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. As you recall from the October 10th special session last week, staff was directed to develop a staff report with recommendation of augmentation of 6 firefighters to include the estimate for overtime. What you found in front of you as the recommendation, it's my recommendation as staff for you to adopt Resolution 2016-166, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right. Are there any questions from council? Questions? Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tim Burns.
You're going to get a red.
I'm sorry. Once again, council, Tim Burns, resident of District 4. In earlier conversations, I've asked how, in fact, the reduction in staff will impact the fire department's response time. Clearly, this is a good bridge. I'm not convinced yet that it's a permanent solution, but it certainly is a solution that will buy some time, and I'd encourage you to move forward and support the chief and the city manager's request in this case. We'll be better tomorrow than we are today, but we won't be as good as we were when we had those 12 firefighters that are no longer on board. I would suggest that I'd also like to know again how, in fact, the increase of 6 and the reduction of 6 will impact the homeowner's insurance and the fire rating. I think that's important to know. And then I think the most important thing I'd like to know is what the chief's anticipation is for his staff's safety. I've heard him speak at least on 2 occasions where he's concerned about the fatigue that could arise from a lesser staff than was once there. And I think it's important to have those community conversations. And so finally, I would just again like to know what the response time was as opposed to what it will be, and how this is going to impact homeowner insurance rates based on the fire rating for the city. Thank you, council.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
No more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council?
I do, Mr. Mayor. I just want to add, and again, I apologize for not being here at the special meeting last week, but thank you, Chief, for your leadership on this. I know there's been a tremendous amount of concerns in our community, and I think Tim Burns mentioned a little bit regarding insurance and all that stuff. But I want to make one thing clear, and that is these firefighters that we lost were because of a grant. This isn't council action. We did not take action to fire these people. We did not take action to permanently hire these 12 firefighters years ago either. So the way I look at it is compared to years past, especially years when I was on the council in 2009, 2010, when we had some brownouts, we had trucks that weren't even being used. Today we are, with these 6 firefighters being added, in a way better scenario than we were in 2009. Way better. So I don't see it as a loss of 12. I see it as an addition of 6. I'm happy that this is happening. I think it's very valuable for our community. As a father of 3, I think it's very important to have prompt response times and so on. So I don't see this as a concern. I see it as a bonus for our community, and I'm happy that we're moving forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Gomez. Councilmember Luna?
Yes. Thank you, Chief, for the report and for the past reports that you have presented to us. And I'm hoping that with a possibility of 6, firefighters coming on board, that in the future we may be looked upon, the city of Hollister, looked upon and really be more considerate of any grant application that we apply, because, there is a need. There is a need. Public safety should be above everything in this community. I think people should think that. We are a growing community, and just like our city managers just mentioned, we were in a moratorium for 8 years.
Correct.
Nothing was actually built, but those building permits were probably building up, And so, but I just want to thank you and your department for being so caring and consistently coming before the city council, never giving up. Whether you gain a grant, whether you lose a grant, you still put the safety of this community forward. And I want to thank you for that.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I'm really hoping that in the future, people take into consideration other agencies out of the, whether it's state or federal, look at the city of Hollister, knowing that there is a need. There is a need to continue the safety of our community. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Friend?
Well, again, Chief, thank you for taking this on. I just want to remind everybody that in 2015, when we got the grant, we hired these 2 people under a 2-year contract. They were reserves in the city, and we hired them. We had 28 firemen, and they were taking care of the county, the city of San Juan Bautista. We're now back to the 28. Now we're going to possibly increase it up to 34.
36.
36, excuse me. The chief has assured us with his plan that this is going to increase the coverage. It's not going to decrease by 6. It's going to increase the coverage in the county and the city. So by his diligence, he's worked out a plan to where he's going to have 3 firemen on a rig every time it goes out. And there's been times when that hasn't been possible without calling in somebody like a reserve or somebody on overtime to do that. So I think we got a hell of a plan in front of us now. And I agree with Mr. Burns that we need to look down the road and probably do this again in a few years. You can't live on grants. Grants are great. They buy us a lot of equipment, but you can't live on those grants. We have to be serious about what kind of fire protection we want in the city. So I think it's important that we move on with this. Thank you.
Councilmember Clower?
Chief, it looks like we got the overtime budget ironed out.
That is correct, Councilmember. We went ahead and allocated $165,000 to make sure that we were not going to go over the overtime budget. Of course, there's going to be unforeseen that I'm hoping doesn't happen with workers' comp or any kind of other unplanned vacation. But yes, it was increased to meet the need going forward from this date, not the whole year, but from this date to the end of the fiscal year.
So are we working with that 7% number that you were throwing
It's
around?
going to be under the 7% if we are able to manage it within the allocated amount of the previous fiscal year budget allotment for overtime to include the additional piece. So yeah, it will.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to, Vice Mayor Gomez made some really strong points. I remember coming in 2013, we had 21 firefighters work at the time. I allocated for 24, but we had 21. By building a partnership with the county and the city of San Juan Bautista, we were able to work as a team. Now, people kind of ask that question, why would we do that? Well, it's to provide better service throughout the county. As I've said many of times, if my family's in an accident on 156, I don't care if they're from Hollister or San Juan. All I know is I want the best service. And we have to continue that partnership. We need to get to a point, if we really want a good service throughout the county, we need to have that as a permanent partnership, not only the city of Hollister, because quite frankly, we can't do it without it. The grant, we were lucky, but we knew at the time it was a grant for 2 years, maybe 4 years. Everyone was clear at that time that 12 of these reserves were going to be lucky enough to be full-time firefighters for at least 2 years. Unfortunately, the grant expired, but we have a good plan. And by having that partnership with the county and San Juan Bautista, we're able to have 36 firefighters, not 21. As far as the rating, the question has been posed many of times. The rating has come down county-wide because of our partnership. There's a dollar value to that throughout the county. Sometimes we have a hard time with taxes and we don't want to pay anything more. Well, guess what? You're paying less in your fire insurance because of that partnership. These things do cost money, and we have to stay together as a community and realize it's extremely important that we have a fire department that can address calls not only in the city but throughout the county. So with that, I do appreciate everything you guys have done and been able to put this back together.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 2016-166.
The motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item F51.
Firemen got to go eat now.
Where are they all leaving?
So,
Whoa,
see,
whoa,
the CIP is...
You guys, wait, no, you got to sit through the whole meeting. Can't just come for the fun.
Yeah.
Was that the dinner bell I heard?
Who's signing their little notes?
Yeah. So I'm bringing back the capital improvement plan. We've made the changes that the council has requested, and I'm just bringing this if you have any questions. We recommend that you adopt the capital improvement plan as presented.
All right. Is there any questions from council?
Nope, thank you for making those changes. That we
No
talked
problem.
Councilmember Luna?
No.
No? Okay. Do we have any speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
about. I make a motion that we approve the adoption of the city's fiscal year capital improvement plan.
Second.
Second.
I would like to remind John that the firefighters left.
Did we put him to sleep?
Is he okay?
Now he falls when the fire department's left.
There's a motion and a second, I believe.
Yes, second.
Motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 52.
Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen of the public, Mayor and council members. Staff would like to remove item 53 and 54 tonight from tonight's agenda to a date specific.
Well, we're dealing with item 52 first.
Okay.
So,
David's here.
Good evening, council.
Item 52 is a resolution of the City Council that would approve the subdivision improvement agreement for the Serrato subdivision, tract number 315, phase 1 and 2, and authorize the execution of the agreement for the improvements with the Serrato Hollister LP LLC and the UCP Hillcrest Hollister LLC. This project is a 241 lot subdivision, residential subdivision located between Hillcrest Road, Meridian Street, and east of the Pinnacles National Park Highway, just the State Route 25. This subdivision was reviewed and approved at a public hearing by the Planning Commission on March 27th, 2014. This project is a private subdivision. It will have a homeowners association. It will also be annexed into the CFD number 2 for fire and police, and CFD number 4 for the public infrastructure that the city needs to maintain as part of it, which includes like landscaping and other public infrastructure. The project, the subdivision improvement agreement, is what's being reviewed tonight. It's this subdivision improvement agreement, which is very similar to pretty much all the improvement agreements we've approved, is a device that requires the subdivider in this agreement between the city and the subdivider to complete the improvements that were outlined in the tentative map. The conditions of approval of the tentative map were approved by the Planning Commission. They were incorporated into this subdivision improvement agreement, and what this will also do is what the subdivider has done bonds, has posted bonds. The improvement plans have been approved, and as many people can see that they've out there and has already started construction. But what they've been doing recently is some remediation of the soil, and we'll move right into construction of the improvements. I want to bring your attention to Exhibit B of the subdivision improvement agreement. It's a supplement number 1. It's actually a revised Exhibit B. Item 5 is no longer used, and that was a item that talked about transit services on Santa Ana Road. This project does not front Santa Ana Road, and the particular item was left on from a previous project. So with that, here to answer questions and recommend that the City Council approve Resolution 216-145.
Okay. Is there any questions from council? No questions? Or Councilmember Luna?
Yes. You just mentioned that item number 5 was removed because of a previous project?
Yeah, what typically what happens is the engineering division will take a previous agreement when we start drafting it up, and one of the staff members made the modifications to it, and inadvertently this particular item number 5 was left in there, and it should have been removed when we first drafted the agreement. And it was caught, and therefore that's why we have a supplement to this one.
So it was like an error in copy and paste?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. Just one.
Okay. Councilmember Friend? I'm sorry, Councilmember Clower?
Yeah, in regards to, try not to get too fired up. In regards to that mistake and a couple others that I found in the last few weeks with this, I just want to make a point that whoever puts together the subdivision agreement or whatever other document we're working with, I want to make sure that they proofread whatever they're writing and then their boss proofreads it, and then that person's boss proofreads it before it gets to us. Because when it gets to us, it gets to the public, and I would prefer to have the smallest number of mistakes on important documents when those actually are made public.
I understand that, with my apologies.
Thank you.
I have a concern. I've been trying to wrap my head around this part of this. They're doing a lot of work out there, and we haven't approved anything at this point.
Well, the Planning Commission approved the subdivision. There were no appeals. There were no reason or request to bring this to the City Council for approval of the tentative map. The tentative map actually approved the subdivision. And with that, they approved all the tentative map conditions. In order for the tentative map conditions to live on, and for the subdivider to really do a good business practice, they enter into this agreement. Had the subdivider wanted to, they could have completed all the improvements out there. And we've had subdividers, smaller subdividers, do this recently. And we've come back with a very minor amount that needed to be done. They could have approved all or completed all the improvements out there, and with bonds posted and maintenance bonds, everything, there would be no subdivision improvement agreement. After that, then the map could have been approved administratively, which is what we normally do on a regular basis, anyways, because all we're really working on is the improvement agreement at this point.
Right, but if the council had decided not to approve the project, there'd be no project.
Well, they still have a project, but the council would not be approving at this point, if that's their desire, would be not approving the agreement, which guarantees and really helps protect the city and guarantees that the improvements for this subdivision are completed. The subdivider, like I said, could do all the improvements, go the way to completion, be done with everything, and then ask that the map be recorded.
As I've said in the past, I've been concerned about our growth. I'm concerned about a lot of issues. I think this is probably one of those projects that's taken it past the tipping point now. And unfortunately, this is one of those projects that I've been asking to see homeowner association covering their costs. This is one of those projects that actually is a little more favorable. But I'm still concerned we don't have an overall plan for the city's growth, and I've made that very clear in the past. I'd rather see us step back, take time to put a new plan together. Councilmember Friend?
I do have one question about the HOA, according to this agreement, will maintain the private roads, sewer and water, storm drains, utilities. Are they also going to maintain the bioretention pond? Is that part of the HOA? There's a pond at the northwest corner of the project that is a public. It takes public waters. It's in addition to the waters that are the storm waters that are generated from the subdivision. There are a number of smaller ponds within the subdivision, and the subdivider and the HOA will be responsible for maintaining those smaller ponds, and they're scattered throughout the subdivision.
Well, the reason I'm questioning, because to see the work that's going on there, and they're digging 30-foot holes because of what's in that dirt. And I want to make sure that those bioretention ponds, once they put blacktop on it, does not become a city issue that the bioretention ponds now become a hazardous waste dump for all the runoff off that property.
Yeah, we don't foresee that happening. What they did out there with the remediation and moving the contaminated soil underneath a paved surface, that's a tactic that is done throughout the state. And I couldn't tell you if we've done it in Hollister before. We have, yeah. So we have done that. So it is a very standard thing, and we'll probably be seeing more of that as more and more orchards and other ag land are developed.
I'm sure. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Gomez?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, first of all, I just, for the sake of context, when I was first elected in 2008, the first meeting that was requested by me as council member elect was with the developer at that time of this property. So 8 years. It's been 8 years that I've been waiting to see a tractor on that property to get something done. Mm-hmm. So I know that people are barely seeing it now, but this project was actually approved before my time. So this is part of the project. It's part of the general plan. It's part of our plan as a community on how to grow. And I know that we continue to hear about this anti-growth sentiment out there, and that's fine. But as a former business owner, I could tell you that everybody wants the amenities of a larger city, but nobody wants the growth. I'm not going to invest in a community if I can't count enough rooftops to open up a business. So if you're okay with the businesses that you currently have, if you have currently happy with not having an Applebee's and a Chili's and all that good stuff, cool. Put your growth cap. Don't grow the city. Keep it the way it is. But don't complain that you don't have those amenities if you're not willing to accept the growth. So I'm happy to see this happening 8 years later. This is finally developing, and I'm glad to see it moving forward finally. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Clower?
Yeah, just as a procedural note, I think it might be good to have the applicant sign any agreement before it comes to us. That way they've assured that it's what they want to see on there. Just because the original way that this was written up, I would imagine the applicant would have caught a couple things and then we would have been kind of backpedaling. So I think just going forward, it might be helpful to have the applicant approve it, sign it, and then when it gets to us, that really should be the final thing because they're coming to us for approval.
The applicant actually has signed this, and it's in the signature folder for the council, for the mayor.
If we can get it done and in the agenda packet, that'd be helpful.
We're going to be working diligently on making sure that occurs.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. James Fletcher.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Jim Fletcher. I am the Division President for Benchmark Communities Bay Area and responsible for this project that you're taking a look at tonight. First of all, I'd like to express our appreciation to your staff for working hard and diligently with us. This is a large and complicated project, and to get it to this point, to move it to this place has taken a serious team effort. And from David's department and all the way through, they've been very helpful and responsive, so we appreciate that. Just a couple of points of clarification. This project, we originally got involved in it in 2013, and we filed a revised map that was approved by the Planning Commission on March 27th, 2014. Subject to a whole long list of conditions that we're required to respond to and deal with. And that's really what we've been doing in large part over the last couple of years, finalizing the engineering, dealing with all of the conditions that we could resolve post or pre-start, and there are several conditions that we comply with post-start. In California, it is possible under the Subdivision Map Act to, once you have this map approved and the engineering approved, to go do all the work absent this agreement we've asked the city to enter into with us. And then once all those improvements are in the ground and completely done, consistent with the tentative map approval, the engineer will, your engineer would approve the fact and acknowledge that the work was done, and then it would come forward and the map would get recorded and the lots would be created. And a lot of smaller developers do that because they're able to avoid posting the bond. This agreement comes with a $10.2 million subdivision bond that we've already posted and placed, and that assures the City of Hollister that we will live up to all of the commitments that we make inside of this agreement. If we don't, then you have recourse against the bond to make sure that it takes place. So that's not necessarily the easiest thing to do for a lot of folks. We're fortunate to have the financial resources to do that. So we've posted that bond. It's in place. The city's holding it, subject to the council approving this. We've also paid over $900,000 in final map fees and engineering inspection fees just recently, all in support of this agreement. So I know that there's some concern in the community because I've been aware of it, I've been made aware of it, and I've seen it posted regarding the remedial work that's going on right now. So I'd like to speak to that just real quickly if I could. One of the conditions of approval required us to do a deep assessment of the quality of the soil. This site had been actively cultivated since 1939, perhaps even earlier, as an orchard, and during those early years, certain pesticides and chemicals were applied mostly to apricot trees, is what I think they primarily were. And this was done, this was standard practice, and fortunately, we as a society have gotten more and more aware of some of the impacts, long-term impacts of those types of chemicals, and thankfully, I think we've gotten a lot smarter as a people. But the residual effect of those chemicals is in the ground and has to be dealt with if the site's going to be developed. So we have worked with the California Department of Toxic Substance Control. That's a state agency that oversees the remediation and cleanup of sites like this. And they've been involved in many, many, many type of remedial plans like this throughout the state, thousands. We have received a permit from them to do all of the work to deal with this contaminated soil, and there are some contaminants there. And what we're doing is we're basically taking the soil and we're burying it under the private streets. These are essentially inert, non-soluble type of chemicals. They don't run with water. They're there like lead. Lead falls off of a building. It goes into the ground. It doesn't move, but it's there. So the state has concluded that the best way to deal with this, or at least one way to deal with this, is to bury this in the ground as long as it doesn't affect groundwater, and all of that work is done and all that engineering and assessment is done as part of this process. And then it's backfilled with clean material. And then we begin to put the sewers and the storm drains and all the improvements that go above that, a minimum of 10 feet above wherever that impacted soil is. So that's exactly what we're doing now, and that's why you see deep, wide trenches. We're pulling the contaminated soil under the supervision of engineers and technical support, and we're moving it and basically solving this problem. So we think we're actually doing a really positive thing. The site will be considered clean, completely habitable. And by the way, this will be completely disclosed to all of our future home buyers that this was the prior condition and this is what we've done to fix it. So I think we're doing the most responsible thing, and I think you're right. You're going to see more and more of that as ag lands continue to be developed as that happens. So we are here to answer any questions you might have. Thank you very much for your consideration of this.
Thank you very much.
Michael Hansen.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Council, thank you for giving the opportunity to speak on this. I spoke a month ago about this topic. It's basically the same thing. I'd like to re-echo what the mayor said. Nothing has really changed. There is still not enough water to continue to build as many houses as we have. I am all for growth in Hollister. I think it's awesome. The problem is we have to be able to get people into Hollister. We talked to her that they were talking about maybe widening 25, but there are two other roads that are major arteries in Hollister that are going to be just clogged. As soon as the Santana thing is finished, Fairview is going to be a mess. 156 is already a mess. And 25 is going to be a complete mess for I don't know how long until they fix that. Still don't have the school infrastructure. And the water or the roadway going into it. So if you could please, as you postpone these out until more of this actual infrastructure and these things are done, completed, and ready for housing. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tim Burns.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Most of the questions I had have been asked and answered through the conversation that's preceded my coming up. The one question I did have, though, is it's also been suggested in recent conversations that with the new development that is approved or in process, that it's going to increase call demand for police and fire by about 20%. And I've not really heard a plan to move forward and address that except through developmental fees. And I'm not sure that that's adequate to cover the needs. I'm also very pleased to hear about the disclosure. That was something that I thought was critical, and I appreciate the fact that they are going to disclose that to prospective buyers, recognizing the significant amount of the people that move to Hollister don't live here currently. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cassandra Sanchez.
Hello. I have a lot of different things to talk about, but I'm just going to essentially say this. I'm asking you as the City Council to delay your vote on any additional building, the 52 and the other houses that are coming up. I understand that our community needs to have growth, but at this point, there's too many houses being built at one time. I know Mr. Rivera seems to think it's only 1% since 2008, 2009, but our community needs to invest in our schools, in our public safety, in our recreational areas, and get all of those things done first before you start inviting, a potential of 415 new houses to be built that's on this evening's agenda. If Prop W or Measure W does not pass, that extra 1% that's not an additional sales tax is going to affect our police and fire safety. The police chief has already posted that there's a potential loss of 3 school resource officers, 3 patrol officers, 2 canine officers, and several other positions. Fire has said that there's a potential loss of up to 4 firemen. So the 6 that they're going to gain tonight, they could lose up to 4 of those because of that 1% sales tax. So I'm asking you to wait at least until after the November election to determine if Measure W passes. And if it doesn't, I think you need to go back to the books again and look and see what else can be done to improve our safety, our public safety, our recreation, and then come back and vote on these houses. And I don't believe that just because a planning and permits were issued decades ago that we have to continue to move forward with this growth so fast. I'm not opposed to more houses. I'm opposed to how you're approving it so quickly. Let's get our community straightened out, our roads taken care of, our fire and our police safety taken care of, our parks, our education for our youth, and then invite more housing. And I don't care about Applebee's and Chili's because I don't mind driving 20 miles. I care more about the immediate resources in my community. That's why I moved here. I don't want to live in San Jose. I don't want to live in Gilroy. I want to live in a place that has more space and more resources for my family. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments?
I do, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember.
Of course I do.
Vice Mayor Gomez.
I want to address a couple of the comments that were made by the public. Number one, we have nothing to do with schools. We don't fund schools. We have nothing to do with schools. Can't help you there. Less than 1% growth over the past 2 decades. Less than 1% growth. I mean, that essentially is a no-growth community. That is a community that has not grown and kept up to pace with any of our surrounding communities. So that's a little shocking to me that you would not believe a fact, but that's an actual fact. The Highway 156 issue. Well, actually, you know what? Let's talk 25. Highway 25 was proposed to be widened in a sales tax measure in June. The voters of San Benito County said, no, we're not interested in widening Highway 25. Okay? The opportunity was there. It was declined. Traffic impact fees. We raised traffic impact fees to address these traffic impacts that are happening because of residential development. So the statement that we're not doing anything and that we're not forecasting is just not a right statement. We've included Highway 25 widening. We've included the widening of Union Road. We've included 156, which we'll talk about in just a second. So with that said, Highway 156, scheduled to be widened. It's actually, it won't even be widened. It's going to be a completely new highway between Hollister and San Juan Bautista. Brand new highway construction beginning in 2019. So, yes, I understand, that they're all coming together at the same time. That's fine. We would have liked to have actually done all this growth consistently over the past 16 years, but because of the moratorium, we couldn't do that. Water's another issue. Guess what? And Billy, I'll ask you this question. Can our wastewater treatment plant sustain more growth?
Yes, right now I believe we're treating about 2.225 million gallons a day. Our treatment plant has a permitted capacity of 4.5 million, but actual capacity at the plant is about 6.5 million. So we could actually treat enough effluent about 3 times, or at least twice the size of our current community right now.
Thank you. So, I feel for this anti-growth sentiment that's out there in the community. I'm born and raised in San Benito County. I used to walk through orchards from VH to get to Rancho when I was growing up. That was my life. That's what I did. I understand the issues that folks have. But back to the fact, in 2 decades, we've grown less than 1%. That right there is a cap that we put on ourselves. It's there. It's happened. It's a fact. I appreciate the comments, but I'm going to be supporting this resolution today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Clower?
Do you think we could get, or at least make public the process that applicants go through to gain approval? Because I think the one thing that stood out to me in this conversation was things are happening too fast. And I know I may be development in California does not happen fast. It takes years to come up with projects, and then you got to hope that you've timed it right economically. So it'd be nice I know it exists because I've seen it in Abraham's office. If we had the checklist, the timeline that applicants have to go through. And then I think it would be good for the public to know this happens at this meeting at the Planning Commission, which meets on this day, because a lot of the commentary is that we're approving a project right now. This project was through the Planning Commission a long time ago. Yes, we're still talking about it, but it's kind of already left the station, whether that's good or bad. So I would suggest that people who are really fired up about this type of stuff, you got to go to the Planning Commission meetings too, because that's where a lot of the information early on is being put out. That's when your voice is going to be even more important to be heard, because you're going to be early on in the process when they're actually shaping the ideas for these communities. I think that's the fourth Thursday of the month, so we have one coming up pretty shortly. I haven't seen the agenda, but I imagine some of you guys that are commenting on this would be interested in seeing what that's going to be. So the Planning Commission meetings are very important if this is a topic for you, okay? And if we can somehow get that timeline out there, because I think these projects have to come before either the Planning Commission or the council 3 or 4 or 5 times. It's not just one and done.
Well, there is a process, and I just looked real quickly at the agenda. Out of the next 3 items after this one, they all participated in a growth management program. I don't know if people remember, but there was a Measure U, which was enacted in 2002 and sunsetted in 2012. At least 3 of these projects I know went through the allocation process, which was 244 allocations per year. That was a voter-approved measure, and they've participated in that. So, but what we can do is that you're at the next meeting, or November 7th, or maybe one after the 7th, we'll go ahead and kind of do exactly what you suggested, Councilman Clower, is we'll put together sort of what happens when, and kind of go through the whole process now of the, or give kind of the Development 101 sort of class. How's that?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Measure U was pretty brutal. I mean, it was a voter improved, about 2%, I think, growth at that time, maybe a little bit less, and it was very difficult to navigate through. I mean, it was not easy. So it was a pretty restrictive ordinance.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
The motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Aye. We'll move to item, motion carries 4-1. We'll go to item 53.
Mayor and council, items 53 and 54.
Why don't we do this?
can
Why
we
don't we take a
please-
5-minute break? I
Sure.
just realized it's 8 o'clock and
Thank
they're
you.
all getting their signatures, so. At this time, we are moving to item 53.
Okay, so item 53, staff respectfully requests that this item be pulled and continue to the November 7th council meeting.
Do we take action? We need this in a formal motion? Or just a consensus?
No, you have that administrative chair.
Well, let's just do it formally. Is there a motion to continue to?
So moved. Both items 53 and 54.
Motion, is there a second? Motion is second, all in favor? Aye. Aye, motion carries. Move on to item 55.
Okay, item 55 is another subdivision, a resolution of the council approving the subdivision improvement agreement for Orchard Ranch, tract number 325, authorizing execution of the agreement for improvements with HBV Group LLC, California Limited Liability Corporation. Orchard Ranch is a 53-lot residential subdivision located between Buena Vista Road and Central Avenue, north of Carnoval Drive. And this particular subdivision was reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission on May 28th, 2015. The map's been reviewed by staff, and it is determined to be substantially conformance with the approved tentative map. The map, the property owners for this will be annexing into the Community Facilities District number 2 for fire and police services, and Community Facilities District number 4 for landscaping, park, public infrastructure, maintenance, and operations. And again, I need to apologize because we do have another item where item number 4 on Exhibit B of the subdivision improvement agreement talked about LAFCO approval. This actually was for, that item was for Orchard Park, which is one of the subdivisions that we just continued to the next meeting. So with that, you're willing to ask any questions?
Are there any questions from council? Are there any? Councilmember Clare?
On the map within the packet, is Lot A retention pond?
That is a retention pond, and it does have a park a little pocket park feature with it.
Okay. That's it.
All right. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tim Burns.
I'll reserve my questions till when it comes back before council. Thank you.
This does.
Okay, any other speaker cards?
Doug Ledeboer.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Doug Ledeboer, representing KHBV Group. I just wanted to thank staff. We're in agreement with the recommendation for approval. We're also in agreement with the conditions, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Any other speakers?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council? Councilmember Luna?
Yeah, this is District 2, right? The west side. Yeah. My question is, when you're developing a development such as this, I noticed you already named the streets. The streets are named in the project. At what time or who names these streets?
Very early on in the plan check process, this if they weren't if the names weren't identified on the tentative map, we require the subdivider to submit proposed names very early on. Those names are reviewed by the engineering department, division, planning. The names are transmitted to the fire and police and our 911 dispatch center. They go through a process to make sure that the names are understandable over the radio, that there's no sound-alike names, that the names make sense, so that there will be the goal is to have no confusion for emergency response when dispatch needs to dispatch somebody out to the subdivision.
And I would just like to mention that, in the future, if there can be some consideration, because, I worked here for 30 years. I saw the West Side developed, and I remember some of the housing, that the streets that were named were very meaningful to the area. And in this case, we have some people that worked very hard to build the West Side and the homes that exist today. And today there are 2 older gentlemen that are still living. And I'm thinking that someday, hopefully, when another development comes through, that some consideration be given to their name. Because I think it would, they contributed a lot to the city. And they're very quiet people. They're the unsung heroes, that today they're elders. But I'm hoping that maybe that can be taken into consideration. And the clock doesn't belong to me.
Please forgive me. Sorry about that.
It won't stop me.
Come on.
I was thinking 3 minutes went by pretty quick.
No, my minutes are not up. Okay. But that was my commentary.
Thank you. We'll consider that next time names are needed to be done.
All right. Any other questions from council? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
4 aye, 1 against.
Thank you very much.
We'll go to item 56.
Well, good evening. We have an exciting opportunity to truly have a private-public partnership with a great business within Hollister, Technova. One of the city's 9 economic development principles is to set targets for job creation and retention by creating opportunities for small businesses and entrepreneurs to gain support and start companies with strong collaboration between public and private sectors. Technova is a well-respected manufacturer of specialty biotechnology that moved to Hollister in 2004. The company provides 84 local jobs and is poised to expand their 45,000 square foot lease production area to an additional 80,000 square feet within the next 2 to 5 years. Employment could double. Technova is being courted to relocate and expand operations elsewhere. Staff recently met with Technova and local business stakeholders to discuss incentives for business retention and expansion. Technova identified the recent increase in traffic impact fees as a reason to consider relocation. Highway 25 widening was added to the most recent update of the Traffic Impact Fee Program, otherwise known as TIMP. The estimated internal cost to widen the highway between San Felipe Road and the county line of $22,500,000, which represents 53% of the total road improvement costs for the TIMP. Staff believes the following incentives could assist Technova in staying in Hollister and thriving in Hollister. The city will initiate an amendment to the January 2016 Traffic Impact Mitigation Fee Nexus Study that establishes tiered impact fees for new industrial manufacturing development that generate local jobs and redirect commuter traffic away from the peak paths of travel on Highway 25 and Highway 156. The city will expedite building, site, engineering, and architectural reviews and facilitate streamlining of approvals in state and federal incentive programs with the Governor's Business and Economic Development Go Biz program. The city will work in partnership with Technova, the Governor's Go Biz program, the Small Business Development Center, and local economic development organizations to facilitate the use of state and federal incentives for business expansion, job creation, retention in Hollister, and business assistance such as, but not limited to, the California Competes tax credits, California Business Investment Services, and the PG&E solar and energy savings programs. If the current sewer impact fee study or planned amendment to the January 2016 TIMP study and associated impact fees are not approved by the time of the final occupancy inspection for the new Technova buildings, the city will credit Technova for the net difference between the old and new fees. City staff is directed to work closely with Technova and their representatives to maximize the use and productivity of the project site while adhering to requirements in applicable building, fire, and similar codes to protect the general public health and welfare. And the city will pursue the potential to establish an enhanced infrastructure financing district to assist the business expansion. In addition to those items, the city will work hand in hand with Technova, guide them through the process, and make sure that this expansion is done in an efficient and quick manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Questions?
I don't have any questions. I have comments, but I could wait till after public testimony.
All right. Do we have any public comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Tim Burns.
Thank you, Council. I believe all my questions were answered. I just was curious about what the incentives were going to be based on what I read on the agenda, and I believe Mr. Swanson has answered them adequately. And I think from what I've heard that this is really a good thing for the entire city of Hollister, and I would encourage you to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Phil Fortino.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council, former business person. We heard a lot tonight about the growth, traffic. We had a young school teacher that was commenting about her commute to work and the lack of opportunity here in San Diego County. And the problem is we've got 60-70% of our workforce that leaves here every day to go to work. You can't have a community if you've got 2/3 of your workforce leaving here. They can't help out in the classroom during the day. They can't have a business lunch locally. They just can't be part of the community. They get up way too early. They get home way too late. What you need are jobs in San Diego County, and you need good jobs. Jobs like Technova brings to San Diego County. We've lost businesses like National Vitamin, LifeSpark, Vacationaire Shelton Industries, California Fiberglass, Kinnear Metalcraft, Semifab, to attractive offers from surrounding communities. I urge you to think outside the box and do whatever it takes, not only to keep Technova in San Diego County and growing in San Diego County, but to find other businesses outside the area to come in here and create those kinds of jobs that we need to make our community what we want. We want you to send a message that Hollister and San Diego County is open for business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other speakers?
Ted Davis.
Hi. First of all, let me thank you guys for spending so much time on this issue with us.
coming down, visiting our facility and trying to understand our business and what our needs are. That means a lot to us. It really does. I'll just give you a brief history here of Technova. We were founded in 1996 in Half Moon Bay, and we grew fairly slowly, actually, for the first 8 years. We rented 4 different spaces there that were not connected together. And when we finally needed more space, I got together with a developer, and we gave 2 proposals to the city council. They were in Half Moon Bay because we wanted to stay there, and they were both rejected because of the way it impacted traffic, actually. It was jumping out onto Highway 92, so it was a problem. It's kind of analogous to Highway 25 here, but they have a major traffic issue there, I'm sure you know. We're growing very fast right now. We're growing about 55% over last year. In the past 18 months, we've gone from 55 employees to about 105 or so. We're trying to build a facility here. We want to stay here. We feel like we're part of the community. It is our home. We'll probably double in the next 2 years. That's, if you look at our rate, we'll easily double. Our industry is doing extremely well. The kind of jobs that we'll bring here are we bring jobs at the executive level, managers at all levels, scientists at all levels, PhD, master's, and bachelor's degrees, and production technicians. Every summer we have a program where we take high school kids or college kids returning home from college, and we allow them to intern in our laboratories, and they learn how to use equipment. Many of those high school kids have gone on to UC Berkeley. We have some that have gone to Princeton, Columbia, just to name a few. We encourage our employees to get involved with all the different nonprofits here. We support Chamberlain's, YMCA, United Way, CASA, the Amaya House, Heritage Foundation, Rotary, Kinship, the Olive Festival, and the Homeless Shelter, and probably a couple others that I forgot to mention. Anyway, we'd like to stay here, and any help you guys can give us, we truly appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Richard Goose.
Mayor, City Council, I'm Richard Gouge. I'm relatively new to the community. I am the CFO of Technova, and I would like to first of all thank you all and the staff for giving the time and close consideration of our proposal. In my short tenure here in Hollister, I've been very happy and impressed with this community. It's a wonderful place. I came down here from San Francisco, and I feel very grounded here. I have helped to formulate this proposal to create this partnership between the city and Technova for many reasons. And as CFO of the company, a lot of those reasons are kind of hard and fast business thinking and strategy. The real estate decisions that Technova makes are the underpinning of the company and the company's cost structure for many years to come. And because of that, it's impossible for us to ignore other opportunities outside of Hollister, despite the fact that this is and has been an incredible place for the company to grow up over the last 12 years. What we'd like to see is another 12, another 24, another 36 years in Hollister of growth. But we do see opportunities that are really turnkey opportunities just to the north, where the real estate, we don't have to build, we don't have to figure out the financing. The developers are offering us several $1 million in cash to put into our business to bring our business there and the growth of our business there, and we could do it very quickly and easily without having to figure out the land deal and the banking deals and all of the fee structures and things like that. But despite all of those incentives, our primary motivation, or one of them, is to figure out how to make it work here because it has worked here for so long. Quite importantly, one of the things that's been mentioned a few times and I'd like to highlight is that Technova has about 100 people employed here in Hollister today. We will double that workforce with this expansion. And 7 out of 10 of the people in our workforce live and work locally. One of the biggest costs to expansion right now in the current structure are the traffic impact fees, which is interesting because we're taking traffic off the roads, specifically the roads that those traffic impact fees would be going to. Another important point that I'd like to raise is that the traffic impact fees are one-time fees that flow into the city coffers, and of course are very important. I have no problems with the fact that the city is financially or fiscally smart about the way they keep a balanced budget and the way they think through their spending very strategically. But I would like to point out, and I'm sure you're all aware of this, that the traffic impact fees come in just once. A business like Technova will create revenue for Hollister every year. And it's likely will create more tax revenue for Hollister and for San Benito County every year than the one-time fees that would be brought in at the front end through this fee basis. And specifically, we've done some calculations, and we see that, first of all, the vast majority of the revenue that's generated by Technova, it's funds coming from outside of the community. Technova does business nationally and internationally with companies, from venture-backed companies to Fortune 500 companies, and and therefore the revenue that we bring in is coming from outside of the community, and more than half of that revenue stays inside the community through salaries, through our work with our many contractors and vendors, many of whom are here to support us in the audience today. And so we're very happy to be here to speak with you today, and thank you for the consideration of our proposal.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I have plans.
Patrick Ellis.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor. I came out here today to talk a little bit more in detail about what Ted had mentioned about the way that Technova supports our community, and in particular our nonprofits. I've worked at Chamberlain's Children's Center for a very long time, more than half my life, and have been connected to Technova and Ted, Irene, Mari Davis for a very long time as well. They've supported us for many years in many different ways. As Ted mentioned, they've provided employees who have volunteered at our organization and who have also served as board members. They've provided thousands of dollars in sponsorships over the years, and they've provided a special touch to their connection to Chamberlain's as well. By providing birthday parties to our children, birthday gifts, and opportunities to our children through sponsorship of outings and field trips and so on. They also contribute to our employee recognition program, which has been instrumental in raising morale and in providing development opportunities for local employees who can then go on to greater roles in our community. And then finally, I'll just share that because of Technova, we've also had opportunities to the foster youth in this city who have been able to find employment at Technova because I don't know what it is, but I think just Ted has a soft spot in his heart for our foster youth, and so he's given them opportunities that wouldn't have otherwise been there. And so I'll also urge you to hear them out, and I appreciate the time and effort that you've put into Technova to this date. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bob Tiffany.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm both a business owner as well as here tonight as the president of the Seminole County Business Council. I'm not going to reiterate everything that's been said. Phil and Ted and Richard and all the others have made a great case for Technova. These are truly wonderful people. It's a great company. It's a success story. They're booming. It's everything we want in Seminole County. Light industrial, and most importantly, bringing jobs. This coming election, there is a measure to extend the sales tax measure, and the Business Council in support of that. I think it's needed for the city, but long term, what will really help the city and the county is we need more revenue from sales tax and from the company growth, the kind of jobs that Technova is offering here. We were hearing earlier tonight a lot of controversy, as there always is in this community, about growth. But no one, I would think, would argue with this kind of growth, because this is growth of good paying, quality jobs, as been pointed out, and this is really what this community desperately needs. The other point I just want to reiterate is that this is an exciting example of what can be done in this city with the help of both Billy and Brian, working closely with Technova and those of Business Council and other business people. I think they've come up with some creative ideas. That's something that can not only help Technova in this expansion project, but also set an exciting example for what can be done in the city and can be used by other existing businesses, as well as attracting similar businesses into this community, which is really what we desperately need. So we urge you to support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from council? Councilmember Friend?
Yeah, I just have a comment that I was lucky enough to spend a couple hours out there one afternoon, and now I know more about biotechnology media than I probably wanted to, but I was really impressed that this is happening in Hollister. That goes all over the world. There's people all over the world receiving these products, and they know about Hollister, and I think that's what I've heard, and I agree that that's the kind of businesses we want in here, and they're very good jobs. It's a very good company. Sounds like everybody was happy there, even though they were pretty crowded in their current space. They were doing a heck of a job. So I am very much in favor of this.
Thank you.
This motion, just because it sets the groundwork that I think we're looking for to start getting companies to realize that Hollister is open for business, as Phil says.
Vice Mayor Gomez?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So first of all, I want to thank Pat, Alice. I know Pat's here, there he is back there. And thank you for coming out and speaking, because that's what I hear. I know Ted, I don't know if we've ever met. I think we may have met like 10 years ago or something, but your name just continues to come out in our community, and we truly appreciate the spirit that you have of giving back to the community. I think that's just something, and like I said, I'm glad Pat highlighted that. That's key. I do want to thank city staff for taking the time to think outside the box. What we have here today is different. It's innovative. It's something that we need to do to continue to attract and retain business, and it couldn't be done without our city staff. So I truly appreciate Truly appreciate their work. What Richard highlighted and what was highlighted, I think, by Ted and others is the traffic impact fees and the traffic in general. I'm one of, as Phil Fortino indicated, I'm one of the 60% that commutes outside of the city for work. I rather not, but I have to. I have to feed my kids and I have to feed my family, and that's what I decided to do. But it does exactly that. It takes traffic off of Highway 25. It keeps our jobs local. I want to thank the Business Council, Bob Tiffany, Christina Chavez Wyatt for their leadership and their business advocacy here in San Benito County. So thank you, Bob, for that. We truly appreciate you guys stepping forward and doing what you could to retain and keep business here. Last thing I'll say is last week I, along with Councilmember Luna, were invited to visit Technova. First time I'd ever been there. Literally, when I walked out of that building, from the time I walked in to the time I left on my walk out of the building, I ran into like 15 people that I knew, all employed by Technova. So thank you. Thank you for keeping our community employed. Thank you for this, what I consider to be a slam dunk proposition to allow you to grow here in the community, keep you here in the community, keep jobs local, keep people off of Highway 25, because less people in front of me, the faster I could get to work. And for your, like I said before, Ted, for your spirit of giving, we truly do appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilmember Luna?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I want to mention to Councilmember Gomez that as he walked down, he met up with about 15 people, you said, you bumped into. Well, you should have stayed for the tour. I got hugs along the way because it's the people that I knew. And I was so proud to see a young woman that graduated from San Jose State, Edith Delgado. And she was part of our LULAC Youth Council, went on to the Young Adult Council, and we supported her with every scholarship possible. And today she's one of your employees. And I also, Richard, I want to thank you for wearing that pin. It really looks nice. I know that someday that I'm hoping that along with the city council and the mayor, we'll have pin day so that everybody can come to the city council meetings to get a pin for the city of Hollister and come out and support the cause that we sit here and, and discuss and support. But I do want to say I really enjoyed the tour. As Council Member Fred said, I noticed the facility was very crowded. Very crowded. Your employees, they all seem to be so happy. Everybody greeted everyone, and it was nice. And it's really nice to have a place like that in Hollister. And I really, truly wanted to stay here. And I want you to remain here because those jobs mean the world to the people in this community. And Phil, I agree with you. We're open for businesses, and that's what we have to think about. Yes, we have housing coming up. Yes, we have been planning ahead for what was coming, against us. But we're getting there. We're getting there. And when we get community support, come out here and realize that, our agendas are 300 pages, 400 pages at times, and we have to read all through that because there are important reports that we have to make some decisions on. And I really appreciate Brian for bringing this to our attention. And yes, the Business Council as well, and as Councilmember Gomez said, for continuing to be on us to make sure that we take that tour and we see for ourselves as to what kind of asset that we have in our community and in our city. So thank you very much for the tour. I really enjoy it, and I'm here to support it.
Thank you. I want to thank Supervisor-elect Mark Medina. He's the one that contacted me about this issue early on, several months back, with the concern about a business leaving Hollister because we're anti-business. So was the perception. I think it was a day later we met with this firm, and we sat down, and the conversation was, we're thinking about leaving because Hollister's anti-business. I said, no, we're not. What do you need? Well, we want to expand here. We want to do this and that. I said, well, what's the problem then? A few days later, we had a meeting set up here. City manager went through everything we do, said, we're here for you. That's what we're here for. There's a perception in our community that Hollister's anti-business. I have never seen any business turned away in our community. Those are rumors out there. What we have now is the ability to actually help businesses because we are doing better financially. That's the difference. Impact fees and these other fees, they're not waived. We actually, as the city, have to cover that cost. But it's important when we have companies here that are providing good paying jobs to stay and create more jobs. And that's what we're working towards with those dollars that we have. That's why those dollars are so precious to us, because now we can start investing back, bringing in these companies that provide these high paying jobs. So I'm very proud of the staff for making all this happen so quickly, and I'm proud that you guys decided to stay with us and enjoy your community, because that's what it is. It's your community, and we're looking forward to many more years here. So thank you. With that being said, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Slow down, everyone.
I thought the shovel was in the ground already.
Those are going to be gold-plated.
I want to see dirt fly.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item 57.
I just have a little explanation on this because I brought this back. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Good evening. The City of Hollister received a request to initiate a general plan amendment of an approximately 4.82 acre site known as the Thorning property. It's identified in the screen in your transmittal. It's outlined in the screen in red, red circle there. From the general plan initiation consists from West Gateway, which allows 20 to 35 dwelling units per net acre, to medium density residential, which allows 8 to 12 dwelling units per acre. The request came before you, if you recall, at the September 6th, 2016 City Council meeting. It received that day 3 affirmative votes in favor of the initiation of the general plan amendment. However, it requires 4 affirmative votes of the council to begin the initiation process. The item is returning pursuant to Councilmember Friend's request for this item to be placed back on the agenda. The site, as you can see on the screen, is located south of 4th Street. It's located west of Westside Boulevard, north of Jan Avenue, and it's located east of Spring Drive. Just to clarify, the 3.3 acre parcel in front, that's also in the front of your screen, that's along 4th Street, formerly known as San Juan Road, will remain with the West Gateway zoning designation. So that will stay. The 4.82 acre site adjacent to the south, circled in red in the screen, it's what's being contemplated for a general plan amendment to medium density residential to maintain compatibility with the existing surrounding neighborhood. The compatibility would be, even though the medium density residential will still allow for multifamily, the option is also for example, smaller lots, single family residential homes on smaller lots, which would be more compatible to the area there that's next to the low density residential that you can see on your screen.
Thank you, Abraham. Based on Abraham's testimony and pending your approval tonight to initiate the general plan amendment of this parcel, staff would then process the general plan amendment application, prepare an environmental report pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act to evaluate the project site and schedule public hearings with the City of Hollister Planning Commission and City Council. Per Ordinance 17.24.290 of the Hollister Municipal Code, council initiation of a general plan amendment shall require four affirmative votes of the council. With this, staff recommends that the City of Hollister adopts Resolution number 2016-165 that would authorize the initiation of the general plan amendment from West Gateway to medium density residential. Thanks.
Are there any questions from council?
I don't have any questions. I just have a comment, clarification. I was one of the negative votes on the first time this came before us, and I brought it back because right after we had a vote, I just felt like I didn't have enough information at the time. And I've since met with the architect and have seen exactly what they're going to plan to do on this piece of property, and I feel that it does it continues on the West Gateway plan, and I think it would be an excellent way to build some smaller houses in that area, and those people will have walking access to shopping and stuff that we're hoping to bring into the West Gateway. So I think since we had the first vote, I've had some more information. I've got some more information to it, and I just wanted to change my plan.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Do we have any speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 2016-164. I'm sorry.
65.
I'm on the wrong one.
65.
165, I'm sorry.
Second. All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? 4-1, please.
And who seconded?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council Vice Mayor Gomez. Thank you very much. We'll go on to item G61. Reports from city council members regarding committees on which they serve. Councilmember Luna?
I don't have a report this time.
Councilmember Friend?
Yes, I have 3 reports. We had an emergency meeting, not an emergency meeting, a special meeting of the San Benito County Fire Protection Advisory Committee on October 13th. It was a very good meeting, a lot of information about the chief's plan on the reorganization of the fire department in addition to the 6 people. He also brought out the equipment apparatus report, and I just want to make note that 3 months ago when he started this report, we had about 11 out of the 24 pieces of equipment out of service, and now we have 2. So the chief has been doing a good job of maintaining these vehicles and bringing them back into service and stuff and redoing it. And this is also with the addition of the new water tender. There was a lot of discussion about moving forward with the San Benito County Fire District or Joint Powers Authority, and it's going to be something that team is going to take on and do a feasibility study and see if that's a better way to take care of the community as a whole. The other committee that I was on was the San Benito County Intergovernmental Committee. We had a long agenda talking about who's going to be the participants to this committee and how often we were going to meet and where we're going to meet. We didn't come up with any defined answer yet, but we've made a lot of movement on adding the school districts to this committee as members of this standing committee to get their input so that we know that whatever's going on in the county that involves the school district, that we get their input from it. And then the third one was the Medical Marijuana Committee, subcommittee the mayor and I were on. Once again, I want to report we've had several very productive meetings with the groups, and we have selected another attorney to represent this group to write that ordinance for us, and I do not remember her last name, and I'm sorry about that, but we will be meeting with her, I suppose, either the first of next week to get her input into the ordinance. So we're moving forward with it so that we can bring it back on the November 21st meeting. Yes. So
is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Vice Mayor Gomez?
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Clower?
Nothing to report.
And Councilmember Friend covered all my committees also.
You and I are the only ones doing anything.
Thank you very much. You covered it well. We'll move on to item 62, informational reports from City Council. Councilmember Luna?
Yes, and I already reported on the Technova tour, which is very interesting. This past weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I worked with about 30 college university students on voter registration, which was very interesting. And let me tell you, our young people in this community know what is coming up in November. And I'm so glad that they understand, and they are reading the materials. They are helping their families, in actually knowing more about the propositions and also the local measures. So I'm glad to report that.
Thank you. Councilmember Friend?
Nope, nothing.
Vice Mayor Gomez? Nope. Councilmember Clower?
Yeah, I have a couple things. In the next few weeks, the council should see language in regards to the Nash Road temporary Nash Road closure during school hours at SBHS, as well as the bypass that will eventually go around the school. I know that the county and their lawyers, as well as the school district and their lawyers, and the city and our lawyers have been working hard on that to kind of iron out some language. I think we're a couple weeks away from everybody being able to take a look at that, which is exciting because that's been about a year and a half in the works. Another item that I'm not sure how I want to approach it, if we want to agendize it and talk about it, or if I need some direction or what it may be, but we have like 6 joint use agreements for different sites with the Hollister School District, and I'd like to pursue the opportunity of creating a master agreement so that we have a better idea of how it all works, because the agreements are very different from site to site, and I know it's been a point of contention between the city and certain departments and the school district and even the Board of Trustees. So I think it'd be a little easier if we had a master joint use agreement that we could kind of refresh the ones that we've got going on, as well as, here's my plug, is to look at Ladd Lane as an additional site, Ladd Lane School. So I don't know if we just want to put that on the agenda and talk about it in the next month or so. It's not a super big rush, but it is important. And then the last item is just, I think that I'd like to pursue a new timeline for how the council receives the agenda packets. Right now, we kind of get them between Wednesday sometime and Friday sometime, which, as Councilmember Luna stated, when you're looking at an agenda packet at 200 on the short end, up to 800 pages on the long end, 3 days isn't enough to do it. And my fear is that I know personally I don't have enough time over the weekend to read that many pages every time if we get a longer packet and we get it on Friday. But I also would like to maybe work with staff and figure out a way that we can create a timeline for the staff members to actually get it beforehand. So that's going to mean that certain items don't make it onto the agenda every 2 weeks, but I think we'll do a better job of reviewing and being able to meet with staff members, because right now we're kind of limited to essentially Monday, the day of the meeting, and that's to me that's not good enough. So if we can get it to Wednesday or Tuesday or whatever it may be and give us a couple more days to meet with staff, that'd be very helpful.
Okay. As far as your comments on the JPA with the school districts, we could probably do that through the intergovernmental, since now the school districts are on board, so we can have that conversation. And also, we talked about the tennis courts at the high school. Have we received any more information as far as the joint use on those? Superintendent hasn't sent you anything?
I don't think so. I'll check.
I'll check with him again.
Okay.
I wanted to congratulate the local DMV. They were one of 12 or 11 offices in the state that received an award on their decorations and their part for the organ donor program. Really impressive, and it was nice to see them proud as could be, as we are of them. And also, today I met with Weeblo Troop 455. They hit me with a lot of good questions and beat me up for a little while, so I want to thank them for coming out and participating in our local government. City Manager?
Let's see. Real quick, just a couple short ones. I want to thank everybody for being relatively careful. We have some street crews out doing crack sealing out there. We've completed about, I'm guessing, right around 48 to 49% now of the streets in the city with the crack filling machine. I know that I've had the comments that now it looks ugly because we actually saw where the cracks are. Forgive me, I know that it looks horrible, but I can't tell you the benefit that it actually provides. So I want to thank everybody. We haven't had any accidents out there, and that's excellent. Getting back to Councilman Clower's sort of discussion, we've met with John DeHalia a couple of times with staff. If it may behoove us, Mr. Mayor, if we actually maybe established an ad hoc committee between the council members and maybe two district members specifically or outside of the intergovernmental, only because I think it will get bogged down. I don't want to. I know intergovernmental takes a lot of time, and we have probably bigger issues that doesn't interest the county or San Juan Bautista. So I maybe would think that maybe going a different route and doing it separately would be good. I think we could probably hammer it out within an ad hoc committee because it's supposed to be less than 6 months. Okay. So yeah, I think if you wanted to appoint a couple of people to that committee, that would be great. And that's it for me.
Okay. City Attorney.
Ray stole my thunder too. I was going to announce that Pamela Epstein has been retained after you guys interviewed 4 attorneys for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chief is not here today. Do you want to give us any update on anything? You're like, what?
I have nothing to report.
City Clerk.
I have nothing to report.
All right, we're going to move to the next item, 63. I've been told we have several speakers, so I'll ask all of you that are wanting to speak if you could hold it to a minute. If you need more time, we'll give you more time because we did not announce at the beginning of the meeting. So, but if you can, help us tonight. So we'll give them 3 minutes, but hopefully they'll make their cases within a minute or two.
Are we doing the presentation?
I had like 30 seconds prepared.
So
there's no.
Okay, we have a presentation first.
Oh yeah, no. On October 3rd of this year, the City Council directed staff to place Proposition 64 on the agenda for discussion. And what all we've done essentially is sort of brought with you kind of the title and summary and the bullet points basically of the initiative. So Prop 64 is the Marijuana Legalization Initiative Statute. Basically, what it does is it legalizes marijuana under the state law for use by adults 21 and older. It designates state agencies to license and regulate marijuana industry. It imposes state excise tax of 15% on retail sales of marijuana and state cultivation taxes on marijuana of $9.25 per ounce of flowers and $2.75 per ounce of leaves. It exempts medical marijuana from some taxation. It establishes packaging, labeling, advertising, and marketing standards and restrictions for marijuana products. It prohibits marketing and advertising marijuana directly to minors, allows local regulation and taxation of marijuana, and it authorizes the resentencing and destruction of records for prior marijuana convictions. So essentially, those are the big key points of Prop 64. My general rule of thumb as staff is I encourage City Council not to necessarily take a position on propositions or measures on issues that don't necessarily relate directly to city business. That's what we do ask you for your support on different assembly bills and Senate bills, but generally not things that end up on the ballot. So once again, that's my recommendation. You can hear public testimony as desired, and then you can provide me direction on how you want me to proceed on your behalf.
Thank you. Is there any comments from council? No questions? All right, we'll move forward with the speakers.
And did you want 2 minutes or 3 minutes for them?
Well, we'll give everybody, we didn't announce it earlier, so we'll give everyone 3 minutes, but if you could, if you're finding yourself repeating others.
Can I call 3 up
please
at a
keep it
time?
short. Sure.
Yeah. Jack Kirk, James Whitehead, and Sue Whitehead.
I want to thank the council and the mayor for allowing us to talk to you. I appreciate that time we've had to meet.
We just got to make sure she's hitting the timer here tonight.
Sorry.
Or it's going to be a long night.
So I appreciate the time we've had to get together. You know, I was over at stopped by Ray Friend's house on Sunday, and I was out walking, knocking on a lot of the neighbors, and I appreciated a few minutes with him. One thing that Ray Friend and I learned is that we have a lot more in common now after the last 90 days, and as we looked at the marijuana issue than we did a few months ago. And what I've learned is that I've been able to, in my mind, differentiate medical marijuana and recreational marijuana. We find that we have about 1,000 to 1,500 medical marijuana card holders in our county, and we need to deal with them to help them, have safe access, and we recognize that. And I personally hope in the next few years that we'll have some medical institutions studying that. I've actually talked to some of the people who do some growing, and most of their recommendations are off their own personal experience rather than any real medical knowledge. So I hope that someday that the people that use it for medication will have safe access, and have medical staff that will give them the proper portions and the things that are normally required. But tonight, what we want to talk about, for the speakers will talk tonight about, is about recreational marijuana. And we're encouraging and asking the council to endorse a no vote on 64. We've been very active in the community. We found tremendous input from the community of support for a no on 64 vote. And so we'd encourage the council to do that, to sustain that tonight or endorse that. We're not trying to put you on the hot seat. We're really not, because I really do appreciate the time, and I think you know that. And in fact, I had this conversation with Ray. I just want you to know that we feel it's important that that you take a position, and we'd encourage you to do that. So as we prepare for the future ordinance, at least we clearly understand that we're going to, in the future ordinance, be addressing access on medical marijuana, not recreational, and that we have time to have that in mind as we go forward. It's interesting today, though, I saw some statistics. Proposition 64 is down to a 51% support level. We constantly heard 60%, 60%. It's down to 51% and dropping. So as people in the state are being more and more educated about recreational marijuana, what this law would do, the advertisements on TV, the effect it will have on our youth and our community, we're seeing that the support for it dropping. And I encourage, again, the support from you as a city. I'm done.
Thank you.
For you as a city to endorse a no vote on 64. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask in this room, how many people are against 64?
Mr. Kirk, Ms. Jack, we don't want to go into that. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Jim Whitehead, and I'm a resident of Hollister. And I'm here to encourage you to take a position of no against Proposition 64. In the last several weeks, I've spoken with a number of people. In fact, yesterday I took the time to visit my neighbors on my street and the neighboring street. Not one of them was in favor of 64. One of my neighbors actually has a medical marijuana card because of a physical ailment he has, and he also is opposed to 64. So again, I'll keep it short. Let's oppose 64. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Sue Whitehead. I'm also opposed to 64, and I would encourage you to be.
I'm going to keep it very short because of time. Prop 64 omits DUI ordinances to keep marijuana impaired drivers off the roads. And it doesn't provide adequate protection for our children. And I don't think that we have enough police to ensure that they will not have access to recreational marijuana. So again, I am against it. And I've also spoken to a lot of people in our area, and all families are opposed to this proposition. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Barbara Saunders, Tim Burns, and Brent Hawks.
Don't be shy. Okay. Just want to make sure you guys didn't run out that back door.
I'm Barbara Saunders and a 35-year resident of this beautiful town. I concur with Mrs. Whitehead completely. I have 2 family members that have medical marijuana cards. They are driving in the highway while using said items, which gives me the fits, because neither one of them should drive on the highway whether they used it or not. The other thing that really upset me was coming home and looking at our paper. I love the Freelance. They have this one San Benito section in there last month, and I think the last issue I got, because I was gone for a couple of weeks, had a student discount to the dispensary that makes the lovely baked goods in San Jose. The one I spoke of previously, where the people were getting right into whatever they had bought there and then going down the road. And a student discount just aggravates the thought that more young people will be using something that could be detrimental to their future. So again, I would ask, please, that you would vote no on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening once again, Council. Tim Burns, resident of District 4. I would urge for you to listen to your constituents that elected you to put you into office. Not only do you have an opinion, but they do, and you've been elected to represent their positions. It may only be a 50.1%, but you really need to listen. One of the things I've discovered as a result of the medicinal marijuana conversation is Hollister really is truly all about family. We've heard it time and time and time again, and regardless of whether 64 passes or not, I think it's time for Hollister to stand up and take a stance, whether it's popular or not popular, and please listen to the will of the people and then represent the will of the people as you've agreed to do when you took office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor and City Council, thank you. My name is Brent Hawks. I've been here for almost 29 years next month. I'm going to disagree with our city manager just a little bit. I agree with his general advice to stay out of the statewide politics, but in this case, Prop 64 affects our community directly, without any question. The preamble of the Constitution mentions pursuing the general welfare, and the general welfare of this community is for you to adopt a resolution saying no to Prop 64. And to make it widely known to the community that it's just not for us, it's not good for our children, it's not good for our families, and it's not good for our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Darrell Foote, Jacob Starkweather, Cam Arrington.
Mayor and City Council, my name is Darrell Foote, and I have lived in this area for more than 39 years. We lived in South San Jose prior to that, and we have raised in this county 7 children, and they're all now moved on, and they have their own families. But when we lived in San Jose, there were drug deals being negotiated in the drainage ditch behind our home, and I worked in South San Jose, and my wife called me at work one day and she said, "I found a house I'm going to buy. Would you like to look at it?" That started the process for us moving from there down to here. And we've lived over in just outside of San Juan Bautista for 39 years now, more than 39 years. Our children were able, 7 children were able to grow up in an environment which was good for them in this area. And now that we see this proposition on the ballot for the state, I'd encourage you to vote as you have been encouraged by those who have spoken before me. This is not something that is good for young people to grow up with. And that's why I'm opposed to 64. And we don't need it here. It will destroy what we've come to appreciate about this area. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. I want to start off by saying I would encourage also a no vote on 64. Mostly I think about my kids and all my decisions, and I think it'd have a very detrimental impact on the youth. I grew up here all my life. I've lived here pretty much my whole life, and going to high school here, most kids thought it was perfectly fine to drink alcohol because their parents did, and society basically said, hey, once you're 21, you can. So in a kid's mind, well, I should be able to do it now. I'm not saying it's right, but that's often the kid's mentality. So the moment we vote and say that it's fine for all of us adults to be smoking marijuana, it's just condoning it a little bit more for our youth. I know we often hear the argument that legalizing it's going to get rid of the black market. You know, the same people, when I was at this as a kid, that dealt those drugs to kids at the high school, they're still around. There's still going to be a black market to high school kids. Only we're essentially making it easier for their dealers to have it legitimately and then turn around to sell it to children. You know, I'm not saying that everybody that experiments with marijuana grows up with a ruined life, but I know, thinking back to my youth, my friends who have fallen well short of their potential and have ruined their lives, all of them were on drugs. I'm not saying that anybody who uses drugs ruins their life, but the people I know who have ruined their lives, drugs were involved. That's family as well as friends. So once again, I just encourage the city to stand for this issue and encourage a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and City Councilwomen, for letting me speak again. I think it sends a strong message to our community and to our youth when our leaders take a stand, and I encourage you to endorse the no vote on 64. I just wanted to read something from something published by the NIH. That's the premier health institute of our nation, staffed by the premier researchers and medical doctors. They said, or they asked the question, is marijuana addictive? And this was written in March of 2016. Contrary to common belief, marijuana can be addictive. And then they go on to say that in adults, research shows that 7 to 10% of adults will become addicted, and that means that they can't stop, despite the fact that it has a severely detrimental impact on their lives. And then this is the sobering statement here, that those who use marijuana regularly before age 18 are 4 to 7 times more likely than adults to become addicted. And so we're talking, 7 to 10, let's say 10%. That now goes up to 40 to 70%. That's a big deal. And you've been put in a position of trust. And with that comes responsibility to take a stand and oppose something that is so detrimental to the well-being of the citizens of our community, and especially our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Nicolason. Steve Barrera, and Gary Cameron.
Thanks, Mayor and Council, for what you do. I know you do serve long hours, and Councilman Clower is right. He needs more time to be able to read. 800 pages is a lot, and there's a lot put on you guys. I moved my business here with a former partner in 2000, and then now we've changed, and I'm in partnership with my sons and have a little business here. We make architectural millwork. We want to stay. We have grandchildren here. That's the part that really troubles me, is that we've sent messages to our children for so long, even had the police come in to the schools. It doesn't matter what city you're in. There was just this movement to teach our children what was right and wrong. And so I would encourage you to support those values that have been part of a community. I mentioned that I'm a small businessman here. I had a partner we had to get rid of because he had a severe drug problem and he was lying about it. We put him through rehab, worked with him for 3 years. He just couldn't kick the habit. He told me, and we had a lot of conversations, he told me that it started with marijuana. So, and that's not the first time I've heard that, but that impacted us, and that impacted our family and my son's families because of those consequences from his being unreliable because of his drug problems. I'd encourage you to get rid of it. Now I'd like to speak one thing to the community. A couple of years ago, there was a casino that came to town. There's huge pressure on the governing entities of cities to find taxes. Tonight you've heard people coming here to town, they'll pay fees, impact fees, but those impact fees, they're gone. You know, they probably come out of the coffers about as quick as they go in, and money's fungible, and you have huge staff. And I would encourage the community to go online and read the comprehensive annual financial reports, not the city budget. Read the comprehensive annual financial budget reports, and then you'll know the pressure that these guys are under. They are trying to staff things that there isn't money there for, and the unfunded liabilities that this city faces are huge. Read the reports and find out. It's a huge task. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name
You
is
bring
Steve.
us coffee? Is that
I
what
brought
that's in
some
that bag?
coffee just for you, Mayor.
I'd eat some right now.
You're taking up my time. So let's try not to get ahead of that.
Yeah, I'm working down the time.
So first of all, I would thank you. I would like to before I start talking about Prop 64 and recreational marijuana, is to talk a little bit about medical marijuana, which is a whole separate issue, and compliment you folks, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Friend, Mr. Clower, for your hard work, past and present, regarding this upcoming ordinance, which is going to, I know, come to some type of an agreement between pros and cons, and will allow safe commercial cultivation, possibly manufacturing and dispensing of medical marijuana to those who need it in our community. And so I applaud you on that effort, and I know we're going to do it. But I want to talk about recreational marijuana. And from a standpoint, I spent 20 years in law enforcement, a majority with a city just north of us, and about 4.5 of those years I spent on a Department of Justice drug task force as an undercover agent. And part of my duties there was I was a Colombian drug lord. I sold multi-kilograms of cocaine to people, and then they brought the money, we seized their products. So the one point I wanted to bring up is there's so many things that are really wrong about Proposition 64, but I want to bring up one point about who will be allowed to manufacture, to cultivate, and distribute recreational marijuana if Prop 64 passes. And it's very clear in the ordinance, in the proposition, that if you're a convicted felon, serious felon, or violent felon, you've been convicted of that crime, you won't be allowed. Murder, rape, common things, child molestation, assault with a deadly weapon, assault on a police officer. It makes perfect sense. But the people that will be allowed to get a license to manufacture and cultivate and dispense marijuana are convicted felony drug dealers who have sold narcotics and been convicted, went to prison. But the problem is they didn't sell more than 2.2 pounds. So they might have sold just less than 2.2 pounds of marijuana, cocaine, of heroin, of methamphetamine, of PCP. And even though they're convicted felons, they can't sit on jury and they can't possess a firearm, but they're going to be allowed to get a license from the state. So I brought a prop for clarity. These are not street corner drug dealers. Here is just less than 2.2 pounds of cocaine. And here is just less than 2.2 pounds of heroin, methamphetamine, or PCP. If you're convicted of selling these, you went to prison, you've done your parole, but you're still a convicted felon, you're going to be able to get a license to sell recreational marijuana, to cultivate it, and to manufacture it. And if you allow it in this city, these are the people, some of the people that will be doing it. So it's important to see, we're not talking about small-time street dealers here. We're talking about convicted felons. Thank you.
And now you can get us all arrested.
Yeah. This will be in your car.
That's what I'm worried about. They're going to set me up. And I do love your stories, and you do make the perfect Colombian drug lord. So,
Mr. Mayor and City Council, it's a pleasure to be here this evening and to be the last speaker. I'm sure you're glad to see me.
We're always glad to see you.
Good, thank you. I'd like you to take a position against Proposition 64. I've been in law enforcement for 33 years. That was my career, and saw a lot of fatalities from drug use and alcohol and so forth. And so I had a personal interest in this. It amazed me when I found out that there are more dispensaries in Colorado than there are McDonald's and Starbucks combined. And we don't want that sort of thing in California, particularly in Hollister, I wouldn't think. So Washington tried legalization for a couple of years, and they found it was disastrous. The results of their experiment have been an increase in drug crimes by 12.5% and homicides by 74%. And marijuana poisoning, 148%. A lot of traffic fatalities resulted. So 64 added a provision that even Colorado doesn't have. It's more liberal because it allows every house to grow 6 plants, which will be untaxed and unregulated, which really provides a lot of product for the black market. So with those things in mind, I would urge you to take a public position against Proposition 64. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is he really the last speaker?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Is there any comments or questions from council? Told you we needed coffee. I just wanted to thank everyone that's coming up and everyone that's taken the time to meet with us at our ad hoc committee. I've been amazed at how much information there is to research on this subject. And both groups of pro and con have really provided us a window that I've just never even imagined of all the things I've learned, especially from the Colombian drug lord. But really, it's been great information, and I know Ray and I have had many conversations about what we learned from all of you, and I think we're still going down that path. Well, I know we are, and we have several more meetings to go. One of the things that did catch me by surprise was the new attorney brought up 64 and some of the issues that go along with 64 and how we can counter it. But there's so much more information we don't know. I've been focused personally on the medical part because that's what we've been working on as a committee. The 64 issue is something that, quite frankly, I haven't been able to dig deep enough into it. I see major flaws in there, as the attorney pointed out. But my focus right now is staying on the medical part of it, and that's where I'm trying to keep my attention. And I'm hoping that the next meetings we have soon, in the next week or two, we're going to go see some of the other parts of this whole industry to make sure that whatever decision we finally make, it's the best decision we can make for the community. So I think at this point, I'm just not comfortable supporting or going against 64. I think there's as I've told the groups many times, my professor would tell me, look, if you don't know the facts, I don't want to hear your opinion. And at this point, personally, I don't have the facts. I just don't. I'm looking for more information, especially through the whole industry. But I do appreciate everything that was said here, and I think I've made quite a lot of new friends in this this journey through this. Who would have known through marijuana? But at this point, I think it's just hard for us to, or for myself anyways, to say I'm for something or against it. As we get to November 21st, all of you know exactly how I feel or what we've come up with as a committee, and I'll let Councilmember Friend express his own opinion on this.
Well, I will express. Like you, I'm kind of sitting on a razor blade. Because of all the information we have about medical marijuana, I'm really concerned that Prop 64 is a bad thing. I really think there just is so many holes in the proposition that there's really no law. Once we open that floodgate, I don't believe in what I read, and I haven't read it all, the proposition, there just isn't any way to control it. I think what we're building on the medical marijuana side, and I think with the cooperation of all these great people that have helped us, we are going to have those controls, and we are going to be able to control what happens in our city. I'm just afraid that Prop 64 does not do that, and I think I hate to quote Dianne Feinstein, but like she said, once again, I think they've done it wrong. And that's just a personal opinion. Whether the city should take a position on it there, I don't know what to do about that.
Councilmember Luna.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since the last time, I think I was the one that requested it be on the agenda this time. And because I still wanted to hear from other people. I've had the opportunity to actually speak to other elected officials in other areas. And I realize that they are not taking a position. Because after all, after November 8th, whatever happens, the position is going to be that it's coming back to the city council level. And at that time, requirements have to be discussed and other actions have to be taken. I really searched my soul on this one because I am very close to young people in this community. And I really feel that, we have to take care of our kids. Nobody else is going to. We have to watch over our community. Everything that you've said tonight is being taken to heart. It's important. And just like a while back, this council stood firm on tobacco. And again, I really believe that after November 8th, we have another issue in our hands. Either way, I'm hoping, like many of you probably are hoping and praying, that those numbers, that 51% goes below. And that's all I can tell you from what my feeling is about Proposition 64. I've heard both sides, and people say it doesn't matter. People are still going to, bring in the marijuana into this community. It's here. But we'll have to decide what to do then. So at this time, Mr. Mayor, I don't think I will take a position on it.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you very much. H, I, J, and K, there's no business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Aye, motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for staying out tonight.